After Grand Emperor Igneous returned to the North Mountain domain, he went to see Grand Emperor North Mountain immediately. Grand Emperor, the Lodestone domain has been destroyed. North Mountain Jag's true murderer has also been found. Who is it? Grand Emperor North Mountain asked indifferently without opening his eyes. It's the Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng. Ha! Grand Emperor North Mountain suddenly opened his eyes and stared intently at Grand Emperor Igneous. Igneous, why did you follow me back then? I followed your majesty for the sake of revenge. Grand Emperor Igneous did not conceal anything. He did not dare to conceal it either. Although Grand Emperor North Mountain did not ask about his matter, he knew that Grand Emperor North Mountain definitely knew everything. Who is your enemy? The Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng. With that, Igneous did not say anything else. He knew what Grand Emperor North Mountain meant. However, Grand Emperor North Mountain could find out about such a matter with a casual investigation. How could he dare to conceal the truth? If he really concealed it, it would probably backfire. Grand Emperor, although Lin Feng is my enemy, I do not dare to bring my bias into this. This was what Dominus Lodestone said personally. Grand Emperor Igneous was already prepared. He had already made a recording of Dominus Lodestone and presented it to Grand Emperor North Mountain. After Grand Emperor North Mountain finished watching it, he nodded slightly and said, "Of course I believe you. The Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng? I know about him. Back during the Big Bang, he killed Grand Emperor Gushi as a venerable and rose to fame as the Grand Emperor of Annihilation. At the end of the day, he's merely a venerable. As for the divine palace of Bamond behind him, it's a little troublesome. However, no matter how powerful the divine palace of Bamond is, it can't control the North River Galaxy. The North River Galaxy is only the territory of His Majesty, the North River Divine King." At this point, a sharp glint flashed across Grand Emperor North Mountain's eyes. He was Grand Emperor North Mountain, yet he was not afraid of the Divine Palace or Divine King Bamond. This was enough to explain many things. Grand Emperor Igneous was a little thrilled, but he did not say anything. He knew that Grand Emperor North Mountain would naturally make the decision. Grand Emperor North Mountain glanced at Igneous, and finally said in a low voice, "All right, the Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng, is your enemy. He also killed North Mountain Jag. Your grudge and North Mountain Jags will be settled together. Igneous, follow me to the Guardian Domain." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Grand Emperor Igneous was very excited. With the help of a top-notch Grand Emperor like Grand Emperor North Mountain, it did not matter how strong Lin Feng was. Lin Feng was fighting against Grand Emperor North Mountain, but he was only a venerable in the end. Grand Emperor North Mountain was one of the best among top-notch Grand Emperors, and could be ranked in at least the top 5 in the entire North River Galaxy. Once such a top entity attacked, it would definitely be earth-shattering. "Lin Feng, I'm coming for you," Grand Emperor Igneous muttered softly, a trace of cold killing intent appearing in his eyes. Guardian Domain. In the cosmos, circles of spatial ripples continued to spread. Lin Feng stepped out of the spatial passage directly. In front of him was the Guardian Domain. Compared to before he left, the Guardian Domain had not changed much. Even the Vigil Domain beside it had not changed much. If there was any change, it would be that the Guardian Domain had become more prosperous now. In particular, the aura of cultivation was countless times stronger than before Lin Feng left. Venerable Vigil is in the Guardian Domain? Moreover, there seems to be someone. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. With a flash, he stepped into the Guardian Domain. In the Guardian Domain, Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius were chatting merrily. "Grand Emperor, do you think Lin Shang can succeed? It's about time. He has my guidance and the various resources in the Guardian Domain over the years. The most important thing is that he has very high comprehension ability. After 6 life transitions, metamorphosing into a planetary life form shouldn't be a problem," Grand Emperor Scorpius said with a smile, as if he was very confident in Lin Shang. "Haha, of course. It's Lin Shang's blessing to be able to become a Grand Emperor's disciple. Venerable Vigil looked in the direction of the secret chamber enviously. Lin Shang was attempting to undergo 6 life transitions and metamorphose into a planetary life form in the secret chamber. Such a cultivation speed could already be considered very, very fast in the universe. Apart from the fact that Lin Feng left behind many resources, there was another very important factor. It was the arrival of Grand Emperor Scorpius, who took Lin Shang in as his disciple, and who had been carefully mentoring him in the Guardian Domain all these years. Even a venerable would not have such a blessing to be personally taught by a Grand Emperor, let alone Lin Shang, who was not even a planetary life form. However, Venerable Vigil also knew very well that while he was envious, Grand Emperor Scorpius had traveled thousands of miles from the Scorpius domain to the Guardian domain just to take Lin Shang in as his disciple. He had even stayed in the Guardian domain to teach Lin Shang carefully. What was the reason? It was probably related to the dominus of the Guardian domain, the Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng. Grand Emperor, do you have any news about Brother Lin Feng? Venerable Vigil addressed Lin Feng as brother directly. This was also why he could talk to Grand Emperor Scorpius as an equal. When it came to Lin Feng, Grand Emperor Scorpius's attitude appeared to be very amiable. Grand Emperor Scorpius shook his head and said, I once sent someone to the divine palace of Bamand, but it seems like the Grand Emperor of Annihilation had gone somewhere. The divine palace of Bamand is full of secrets, and ordinary people can't investigate them to find the answers. Therefore, there's never been any news of the Grand Emperor of Annihilation. It's been so long, but there's still no news. Could Brother Lin Feng be in danger? Venerable Vigil was a little worried. Although he knew that Lin Feng was very strong, he did not know him as well as Grand Emperor Scorpius. Grand Emperor Scorpius knew Lin Feng very well. He thought of Lin Feng's performance during the Big Bang, then shook his head and said, No, the Grand Emperor of Annihilation is the last person who might be in danger. Grand Emperor Scorpius was very confident. He believed that Lin Feng had been sent by the divine palace of Bamand to carry out some secret missions. It was normal for it to take a long time. With Lin Feng's strength, how many people in the vast universe could pose a threat to Lin Feng? Even if he was not their match, no one could stop Lin Feng if he wanted to escape. Grand Emperor Scorpius's confidence in Lin Feng made Venerable Vigil rather skeptical. At this moment, Lin Shang's aura in the secret chamber seemed to have undergone a drastic change. Boom! The secret chamber broke open, and Lin Shang's figure appeared in the void with a single step. At the same time, he deployed his combat body, which was expanding violently. Chu Chun, Lin Xian, and the Lin family all stared blankly at Lin Shang in the void. As Lin Feng's only son, Lin Shang had actually been under a lot of pressure since he was young. The entire Lin family was looking forward to Lin Shang becoming the first planetary life form apart from Lin Feng in the Guardian domain. And now, this moment seemed to have finally arrived. He's basically succeeded. That's right. The metamorphosis was successful. Congratulations to this lad. Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius were both cultivators. One was a venerable and the other was a Grand Emperor. Naturally, they had good judgment. Lin Shang had basically already successfully metamorphosed, and would certainly become a planetary life form. Grand Emperor, if Brother Lin Feng returns and finds out that Lin Shang has already become a planetary life form, he'll be so happy. This is all thanks to you. I owe this to the Grand Emperor of Annihilation. Grand Emperor Scorpius shook his head. He felt that he owed Lin Feng. If Lin Feng had not asked him to leave first during the Big Bang, he would probably have already fallen. How could he live to this day? As Lin Shang's body grew larger and larger, and his aura became stronger and stronger, he flew directly into the cosmos. Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil also flew into the cosmos. However, when they flew into the cosmos, they discovered a familiar figure by chance. He was already standing there in the cosmos. Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius were both stunned. The two of them looked at each other and saw the joyous surprise in each other's eyes. Brother Lin Feng? Grand Emperor of Annihilation. That figure was all too familiar. Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius could recognize him at a glance. Venerable Vigil, Grand Emperor Scorpius. Lin Feng looked at Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius, who were flying over, and smiled. Actually, he had already known that the two of them were here the moment he entered the Guardian domain. Lin Shang is about to undergo metamorphosis. Lin Feng looked at Lin Shang's expanding body. That's right. He's about to undergo metamorphosis. Brother Lin Feng, you might not know this, but it's all thanks to Grand Emperor Scorpius that Lin Shang can undergo metamorphosis so quickly. He's been overseeing the Guardian domain all these years and mentoring Lin Shang with great care. Lin Feng looked deeply at Grand Emperor Scorpius. Thank you for your dedicated guidance to my son, Grand Emperor Scorpius. I'm Lin Shang's mentor. Teaching him is my duty. However, his comprehension ability is really strong. It seems like all the cultivators born on the Guardian planet have good comprehension ability. I've also discovered many good candidates over the years. If they're nurtured well, it won't be a problem for them to at least become a planetary life form in the future. Grand Emperor Scorpius was not exaggerating at all. He had come to the Guardian domain only to take Lin Shang in as a disciple, as a repayment for Lin Feng's help during the Big Bang. However, later on, Grand Emperor Scorpius gradually discovered that there were many good candidates on the Guardian planet, all of whom had a high chance of metamorphosing into planetary life forms. This was extraordinary. Although he was a dignified Grand Emperor and had countless venerables and planetary life forms under his command, it seemed like planetary life forms spawned like mushrooms after rain here. In reality, it was very difficult to give rise to a planetary life form in the universe. Even tens of thousands of planets might not give rise to a single planetary life form. The venerables and planetary life forms under Grand Emperor Scorpius all came from other planets or galaxies. On the other hand, only one planetary life form had been born in the territory of the Scorpius domain. Guardian planet was only a planet, but it was actually possible for a few planetary life forms to be born. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius was very surprised. Lin Feng pondered for a moment. The Guardian planet was naturally very special. It was his home planet, and there must be some secrets hidden that even Lin Feng had not discovered. However, it was clearly different from other planets. Lifeforms born on the Guardian planet could reflect cultivation talent, and there was a chance for planetary lifeforms to appear in succession. Perhaps this was what was special about it. After all, Lin Shang becoming a planetary lifeform could be attributed to Lin Feng's bloodline, but others did not have Lin Feng's bloodline. Lin Shang was undergoing rapid metamorphosis, but he seemed to be lacking some energy, and the speed at which his combat body expanded was a little slow. Lin Feng took out some cosmic miraculous items from the Starfell Pearl and threw them into Lin Shang's combat body. Lin Shang's combat body devoured them directly. Immediately, a large amount of energy filled his combat body, and Lin Shang's combat body expanded rapidly. 10,000 kilometers, 15,000 kilometers, 20,000 kilometers, 25,000 kilometers, 30,000 kilometers. In a short period of time, Lin Shang's combat body expanded wildly, reaching 30,000 kilometers at once. However, 30,000 kilometers was not the end. Lin Shang's combat body expanded faster and faster. 30,000 kilometers, 40,000 kilometers, 50,000 kilometers, 60,000 kilometers. In the end, Lin Shang's combat body stopped at 60,000 kilometers. 60,000 kilometers. This was an extremely shocking number. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil were stunned. Brother Lin Feng, what miraculous items did you give Lin Shang just now? Grand Emperor Scorpius hesitated. He had sensed a familiar aura just now. It's just a little chaotic energy. Lin Feng shook his head and said calmly. In the Starfell Pearl, there was actually still a little chaotic energy left over from what Lin Feng had consumed in the past. Of course, to Lin Feng it was just a little and better than nothing. However, to others, especially Lin Shang, who had just metamorphosed into a planetary life form, it was simply a supreme treasure. Chaotic energy. Venerable Vigil was ultimately only a venerable, and did not know what chaotic energy was. However, Grand Emperor Scorpius's mouth was agape, and his face was filled with a peculiar expression. That was chaotic energy, the chaotic energy that even Grand Emperors went insane over. Lin Feng had casually given it to Lin Sheng, a mere planetary lifeform. In the eyes of Grand Emperor Scorpius, it was simply a flagrant waste. If a Grand Emperor could get that little amount of chaotic energy that was casually given out just now, and divide some of their cells, their combat body would be more than tens of thousands of kilometers in size. Lin Sheng was still excited. A 60,000-kilometer combat body was simply beyond his imagination. Originally, he thought that reaching 20,000 or 30,000 kilometers was already an impressive achievement. Who would have thought that it would actually reach 60,000 kilometers? Of course, he did not know how precious chaotic energy was. His limit was actually only 30,000 kilometers, but with chaotic energy, everything would be different. Only Lin Feng could be so generous as to casually throw out a little chaotic energy to allow his son to undergo metamorphosis. This made Grand Emperor Scorpius both envious and speechless. "Father, you're back." Lin Sheng retracted his combat body and flew over directly. He also knew that Lin Feng had lent him some help just now, but he did not know what exactly it was. 60,000 kilometers. Not bad. Lin Feng only nodded calmly. The combat body that had only reached 60,000 kilometers after using chaotic energy was just ordinary in his eyes. Lin Sheng was a little discontent. "Father, I've condensed a combat body of 60,000 kilometers. I've only just entered the planetary level, but my combat body has already reached 60,000 kilometers. As far as I know, there are only a handful of people in the entire North River galaxy who can reach 60,000 kilometers after 6 life transitions. I have 6 times the combat body of an ordinary planetary life form." Grand Emperor Scorpius smiled helplessly and shook his head. Lin Sheng was still discontent. It had to be known that Lin Feng had given him a little chaotic energy that even Grand Emperors would go mad over. Lin Feng did not mention the chaotic energy. He still said calmly, "Not bad. Father, you never reached 60,000 kilometers during your life transition either, right?" Lin Feng glanced at Lin Sheng, and a smile appeared on his lips. "I underwent 6 life transitions in the divine palace of Bamond and metamorphosed into a planetary life form. Although it's been a while, I remember very clearly that my combat body back then should have been 140,000 kilometers in size. 140,000 kilometers. Lin Sheng's mouth fell open. He wanted to say something but hesitated, looking incredulous. Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil exchanged looks with each other. Although they were familiar with Lin Feng, they did not know about his past. Now, when they heard Lin Feng announce that his combat body had already reached 140,000 kilometers after 6 life transitions, a trace of helplessness appeared in their eyes. Absurd. This was simply absurd. It turned out that Lin Feng had already left most cultivators in the dust since the beginning. Forget it. Forget it. If we must compare ourselves to the Grand Emperor of Annihilation, I'm afraid we'd all be too ashamed to live. Grand Emperor Scorpius smiled weakly and shook his head. He had long given up on competing with Lin Feng. In the past, he only knew that Lin Feng was extraordinarily talented and could fight against Grand Emperors as a venerable. He would definitely become a Grand Emperor in the future, and might even become a top-notch Grand Emperor. But from the looks of it, a top-notch Grand Emperor was nothing. Perhaps Lin Feng really had a chance of becoming a divine king. A divine king. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius could only look up to such a great entity. In the entire North River galaxy, there was only one North River divine king. Xianxia, go back and consolidate your realm. The planetary level is a very important realm. It can also be said that your path of cultivation has just begun. Lin Sheng nodded. He had already sensed the wonders of all kinds of planetary lifeforms. Some time was indeed necessary to study and consolidate them. Lin Feng, Grand Emperor Scorpius, and Venerable Vigil flew back to the Guardian planet. Chu Chun, Lin Xian, and the Lin family were also very happy to see Lin Feng return. Lin Feng received a brief overview on the situation on Planet Guardian and nodded in satisfaction. The foundation of Planet Guardian was insufficient. It was already very impressive that it could develop to this stage. Grand Emperor Scorpius, Venerable Vigil. It's all thanks to your care for the Guardian Domain over the years. Lin Feng expressed his sincere gratitude to Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius, especially Grand Emperor Scorpius. He was a dignified Grand Emperor who had guarded the Guardian planet attentively for decades, just to teach a disciple with merely 5 life transitions. Everyone knew that it was because of Lin Feng. It's just a small matter. Back then, the Grand Emperor of Annihilation restrained a few Grand Emperors alone and allowed me to leave safely. That is a life debt. I'm truly ashamed. Grand Emperor Scorpius, you're too kind. Back then, I was also confident that I could leave. You don't have to blame yourself. You and I don't have to stand on ceremony around each other either. Just call me Lin Feng. Haha. All right then. Like Venerable Vigil, I'll call you Brother Lin Feng too. Grand Emperor Scorpius also laughed heartily. The two of them became closer. Lin Feng also felt that Grand Emperor Scorpius was someone worth befriending. He actually did not have many good friends. Currently, there were only Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil. Perhaps Grand Emperor Long Yuan could be considered one of them. There were only a few of them. It was not easy to obtain Lin Feng's acknowledgement. By the way, Brother Lin Feng, do you still remember Grand Emperor Igneous? Grand Emperor Igneous? Of course I remember him. Lin Feng had not forgotten that Grand Emperor Igneous was a potential threat that had always been hiding in the dark and might erupt at any moment. You once asked me to pay attention to any signs of Grand Emperor Igneous. After careful investigation, I really found traces of Grand Emperor Igneous. Where is he? In the North River Galaxy. However, Igneous is really forbearing. He's serving a Grand Emperor. It's very troublesome. Who is it? Grand Emperor North Mountain. I don't know why Igneous joined Grand Emperor North Mountain, but he's under the command of Grand Emperor North Mountain and works for Grand Emperor North Mountain. Hey, do you know what the outside world says about him? He's a dignified Grand Emperor, yet he's willing to become Grand Emperor North Mountain's lackey. He's practically like a servant. TSK. I'm quite impressed by this Igneous, but I'm well aware that Igneous must be scheming something big if he's being so forbearing. In particular, he's very likely targeting Brother Lin Feng. Grand Emperor North Mountain? What a coincidence. Lin Feng then briefly explained his encounter with North Mountain Jag when he returned to the North River Galaxy. No matter why Igneous is enduring it, I have to pay a visit to Grand Emperor North Mountain. Grand Emperor Scorpius, you've been in the North River Galaxy for so many years. Do you know the background of North Mountain? Is he a fiend? Grand Emperor Scorpius frowned and said, If it's really Grand Emperor North Mountain, I'm afraid we'll be in trouble. I've been in the North River Galaxy for so many years, so I've naturally learned of some news. It's rumored that Grand Emperor North Mountain younger brother, North Mountain Jag, is a fiend. Many Grand Emperors disdain him. However, no one attacked because they were afraid of Grand Emperor North Mountain. It's not just because Grand Emperor North Mountain is powerful, but also because of the close relationship between Grand Emperor North Mountain and the North River Divine King. They're really related? It should be true. As far as I know, Grand Emperor North Mountain is a registered disciple of the North River Divine King. Hearing this, Lin Feng fell silent as well. It was indeed a little troublesome if things involved the North River Divine King. Although he was strong, he was not a match for the Divine King. If he faced the Divine King, he would probably have no choice but to retreat for the time being. Of course, it was impossible for a Divine King to kill Lin Feng. He had the ultimate law of space and he was not weak. With combat power comparable to a 10,000 light-year combat body, escaping would not be a problem. However, unless absolutely necessary, Lin Feng would not fight with a Divine King. He could escape, but the Guardian Domain could not move away. It's fine. The North River Divine King and Grand Emperor North Mountain are separate individuals. If he's really a fiend, I'll definitely kill him. I believe the North River Divine King will not really make things difficult for me. Fiends were loathed by everyone in the universe. No Divine King would openly support fiends. Moreover, it was not as if there was no one behind Lin Feng. He was a disciple of the Divine Palace of Bamond. presided over by Divine King Bamond. That's right. Brother Lin Feng has Divine King Bamond behind him. Even the North River Divine King has to be wary. Grand Emperor Scorpius laughed. He was not worried about Lin Feng. By the way, there's one more thing. Apart from teaching Lin Shang, there's another reason why I've been guarding the Guardian Domain all these years. I sense that someone is spying on the Guardian Domain. Moreover, it's definitely not an ordinary cultivator. I suspect that it's Grand Emperor Igneous. Grand Emperor Igneous? Lin Feng thought for a moment. That was really possible. In order to avenge Grand Emperor Gushi, Grand Emperor Igneous could even endure humiliation and join Grand Emperor North Mountain. Targeting the Guardian Domain was only to be expected. That's my oversight. Thank you very much, Grand Emperor Scorpius. Lin Feng stood up and bowed respectfully to Grand Emperor Scorpius. No need, no need. Grand Emperor Scorpius did not expect Lin Feng to bow formally to him. From this, it was evident how important Guardian Domain was to Lin Feng. There were not many things that were of concern to Lin Feng now. The Guardian Domain was the most important thing. It was his Achilles heel that no one was allowed to touch. It's unrealistic for Grand Emperor Scorpius to keep guarding this place forever. You still have the Scorpius Domain to oversee. Looks like I'll have to make a trip to the North Mountain Domain, not just for North Mountain Jag's incident, but also for Grand Emperor Igneous. Lin Feng said calmly. He could not leave any hidden dangers behind. Grand Emperor Igneous would always be a threat. The North Mountain Domain is not easy to break through. Although Brother Lin Feng can fight against Grand Emperors, Grand Emperor North Mountain is a top-notch Grand Emperor with extraordinary strength. If Brother Lin Feng really wants to go, bring me along. At least I can still help to deal with the Igneous. Grand Emperor Scorpius did not know that Lin Feng had already become a Grand Emperor. He thought that Lin Feng was only a venerable. However, even so, when Lin Feng wanted to go to the North Mountain Domain and face a top-notch Grand Emperor Scorpius was still willing to take the risk with him. This made Lin Feng very gratified. At least, he had not misjudged him. Ha! Lin Feng was about to say something when he suddenly raised his head and looked into the cosmos. Grand Emperor Scorpius, it seems like we don't have to go to the North Mountain Domain anymore. There's no need to go? Grand Emperor Scorpius did not seem to have discovered anything unusual, so his tone was very confused. That's right, there's no need to go. That's because they're already here. They're here. At this moment, an earth-shattering aura suddenly rose in the cosmos. The expressions of Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil changed drastically, and they immediately looked towards the cosmos, following the direction of Lin Feng's gaze. Let's go and welcome our guests. Lin Feng's tone was very even, but his gaze gradually turned icy. Welcome our guests? Grand Emperor Scorpius was still skeptical. He was an esteemed Grand Emperor. If not for the eruption of that terrifying aura just now, he would not have realized that anyone had arrived. Lin Feng flew into the cosmos with Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil. Two figures were standing quietly in the cosmos. Grand Emperor Igneous. Grand Emperor Scorpius's eyes suddenly focused. He did not expect it to be Grand Emperor Igneous. As for the person beside him, he seemed very calm. The aura on his body was majestic, like the sun. Grand Emperor Igneous was standing behind him, so his identity was naturally obvious. Grand Emperor North Mountain. Apart from Grand Emperor North Mountain, no one could make Grand Emperor Igneous so respectful. Venerable Vigil. Go down and protect Guardian Planet first. Grand Emperor Scorpius's expression was solemn as he sent a voice transmission to Venerable Vigil. Venerable Vigil nodded. He naturally knew that Grand Emperor Scorpius was just taking care of his pride. In fact, Grand Emperor Scorpius was asking him to escape to the Guardian Planet. With Grand Emperor Igneous and Grand Emperor North Mountain arriving here personally, if they really fought, Venerable Vigil would not be able to withstand even a little shockwave from the battle. Grand Emperor Scorpius, Brother Lin Feng, be careful. Venerable Vigil returned directly to the Guardian Planet to reassure the people. In the cosmos, Lin Feng said indifferently, Grand Emperor Igneous, I've been looking for you for a long time. Grand Emperor Igneous' body was hunched, as if he was just an ordinary old man in front of Grand Emperor North Mountain. It seemed like the rumors that Grand Emperor Igneous was a lapdog and a servant of Grand Emperor North Mountain were not groundless. Lin Feng, if not for Grand Emperor Scorpius presiding over the Guardian Domain, you wouldn't be able to find a Guardian Domain to come back to this time. Grand Emperor Igneous was not flustered or angered. Instead, he spoke slowly and calmly. All these years, he had been spying on the Guardian Domain. He had wanted to attack it for countless times, yet never had the chance. Grand Emperor Scorpius was not that easy to deal with. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Grand Emperor Igneous forbore his revenge instead, and kept following Grand Emperor North Mountain. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed. There was no suppressing the killing intent that rose in his heart. Igneous, after what you said, there will be nowhere you can hide in the universe. Ha ha ha, Lin Feng, so the Guardian Domain your Achilles heel? But do you know that Gushi was also my Achilles heel? Grand Emperor Igneous truly felt incomparably elated. He had endured for so many years and served Grand Emperor North Mountain like a lapdog. He had lost all of his dignity as a dignified Grand Emperor. What was his goal? It was all for this day. Lin Feng ignored Grand Emperor Igneous. In his eyes, Igneous was already dead. This time, he would definitely not leave any hidden dangers behind. Lin Feng looked at the dignified middle-aged man. From the Igneous attitude, he inferred the other party's identity. Grand Emperor North Mountain, you want to stand up for Igneous? Lin Feng asked calmly. Grand Emperor North Mountain was tall and well-built, and had the imposing air of a top-notch Grand Emperor. He said coldly, "Did you kill North Mountain Jag?" "That is right. That's good. If you killed North Mountain Jag, I'll kill you. Then I'll erase the Guardian Domain. North Mountain Jag can be considered avenged." "Ha!" Lin Feng suddenly smiled. Ever since he suddenly became a top-notch Grand Emperor, no one had ever spoken to him like this. Grand Emperor North Mountain, originally, I wanted to make a trip to the North Mountain Domain myself. If you aren't a fiend, I could have spared you. But now, even if you're not a fiend, after the words you've just spoken, no one can save you now. Lin Feng's voice gradually turned cold. At the same time, the aura on his body radiated slowly, rising in a frenzy. Planetary life form, venerable, quasi-emperor, Grand Emperor, seeing that Lin Feng's aura was becoming stronger and stronger, and had already surpassed ordinary Grand Emperors, even reaching the level of a top-notch Grand Emperor, for the first time, a somber expression appeared on Grand Emperor North Mountain's face. A top-notch Grand Emperor. How did you become a top-notch Grand Emperor? Grand Emperor North Mountain had sufficient reason to be shocked. Even if Lin Feng had become a Grand Emperor, he was not too surprised. After all, Lin Feng was the top genius of the Divine Palace of Bamand, and he had once defeated a Grand Emperor as a venerable. If Lin Feng metamorphosed into a Grand Emperor, that would actually be something foreseeable. Even if Lin Feng became a Grand Emperor North Mountain was confident that he could suppress him. However, Grand Emperor North Mountain had never thought that Lin Feng could become a top Grand Emperor. It had to be known that apart from having a powerful combat body, top-notch Grand Emperors also needed to comprehend the ultimate law. This was the most difficult thing. Lin Feng's aura became stronger and stronger, even stronger than Grand Emperor North Mountain had imagined. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius was incomparably amazed at the sight. He had already imagined Lin Feng to be very strong, but from the looks of it, he was still speculating about Lin Feng with an ordinary way of thinking, which limited his imagination. Lin Feng had not just become a Grand Emperor. He had already become a top-notch Grand Emperor. Boom! Grand Emperor North Mountain did not hesitate at all. Facing an expert who was very likely a top-notch Grand Emperor, he did not dare to let his guard down at all. He used his combat body directly. Grand Emperor North Mountain was indeed worthy of being one of the top Grand Emperors in the North River Galaxy. His combat body was actually close to 30 light-years in size. This had already surpassed many top Grand Emperors Lin Feng had seen. Lin Feng had only seen silent beasts that could exceed 30 light-years in size. As for a combat body approaching 30 light-years, Lin Feng had never seen a cultivator with such a powerful combat body. This could be considered the first time he had seen such a powerful combat body. Grand Emperor North Mountain had deployed his combat body approaching 30 light-years. He looked down from above, as if he was looking at a tiny ant. His voice was filled with indifference and arrogance. Grand Emperor of Annihilation, so what if you're a top-notch Grand Emperor? It's not like I've never killed a top-notch Grand Emperor before. Grand Emperor Igneous was also extremely shocked. He had followed Grand Emperor North Mountain for quite a long time, and had even obtained the trust of Grand Emperor North Mountain. However, he had never been clear about the strength of Grand Emperor North Mountain. This was because Grand Emperor North Mountain had basically never fought. Even if anything tricky arose, he would leave it to Grand Emperor Igneous to handle. A single Grand Emperor was enough to resolve everything. Grand Emperor Igneous only knew that Grand Emperor North Mountain was very strong, but he did not know exactly how strong that was. But now, everyone saw how powerful Grand Emperor North Mountain was. He had a combat body of nearly 30 light-years, almost 30 times that of Grand Emperor Igneous. Be it Grand Emperor Igneous or Grand Emperor Scorpius, only shock remained in their hearts. It was shock unparalleled. Top-notch Grand Emperors were at most over 10 light-years in size, but Grand Emperor Beishan's combat body was almost 30 light-years. Moreover, many Grand Emperors did not know that the ultimate law comprehended by Grand Emperor North Mountain was relatively compatible with the combat body. Although it was not the most compatible, the law could enhance his combat body by 5 times. This meant that once Grand Emperor North Mountain went all out in a battle, he could mobilize the power of a combat body almost equivalent to 150 light-years. Even among top-notch Grand Emperors, there were very few who were his match. For a moment, Grand Emperor Scorpius and everyone on Planet Guardian's hearts skipped a beat. They looked at Lin Feng with a trace of worry. Lin Feng, 3 top-notch Grand Emperors have died at my hands. You're very lucky to have the chance to become the 4th today. Grand Emperor North Mountain's aura was imposing. His massive combat body seemed to be able to easily collapse the cosmos and destroy the Guardian domain with a breath. As for Lin Feng, who had not manifested his combat body, he looked more like an inconspicuous cosmic speck. Is that so? Lin Feng suddenly raised his head, and his voice spread calmly throughout the entire cosmos. I've never killed a top-notch Grand Emperor, but I've killed several silent beasts with bodies of more than 40 light-years. Would you like to give it a try? Would you like to give it a try? Lin Feng's voice was not loud, but it rang clearly in Grand Emperor North Mountain's ears. 40 light-years. Silent beasts. Grand Emperor North Mountain heart skipped a beat. Of course he knew about the silent beasts. How could he not know about the notorious Silent Galaxy? In particular, some upheaval seemed to have occurred in the Silent Galaxy recently. Many silent beasts charged out, wreaking havoc in the major galaxies adjacent to the Silent Galaxy. It was rumored that terrifying silent beasts with bodies of more than 50 or 60 light-years had even appeared. However, could Lin Feng kill such terrifying silent beasts? Grand Emperor North Mountain did not believe it. Then I'll take you up on your offer. Grand Emperor North Mountain's gaze was cold. He had also developed killing intent towards Lin Feng. He mobilized the power of his massive combat body and pressed down hard. Boom! The entire cosmos seemed to be shaking, and the void collapsed directly. He knew that Lin Feng had the law of space and could warp space. Hence, with this press, the space of the entire cosmos collapsed. This palm strike erupted with all the power of Grand Emperor North Mountain. It was a terrifying power that had almost reached the combat body of 150 light-years. How powerful was it? Even space was shattered. Grand Emperor North Mountain had made preparations in advance to kill Lin Feng in one fell swoop, without even giving Lin Feng the chance to warp space. Lin Feng was unmoved, however. It seemed like the space in the cosmos had shattered, but that would not hinder Lin Feng. Grand Emperor North Mountain would never have dreamed that Lin Feng had already comprehended the ultimate law of space. Space that was merely shattered could be condensed instantly under Lin Feng's ultimate law of space. Lin Feng could leave whenever he wanted. No one could stop Lin Feng. Even a divine king could not do it, let alone Grand Emperor North Mountain. However, Lin Feng never thought of escaping. Even with the enhancement of laws, a mere Grand Emperor North Mountain with power only comparable to a 150 light-years combat body was insignificant. North Mountain. I'll show you what a Supreme Grand Emperor is like today. Lin Feng's voice was indifferent, as if it contained supreme authority, echoing majestically through the cosmos. Supreme Grand Emperor? Grand Emperor North Mountain was slightly stunned, but Lin Feng was already making his move. He extended a hand directly. This hand grew instantly, blotting out everything as it whistled out. I am the Supreme Grand Emperor. With a palm strike, the cosmos shook. No one could have imagined how enormous this palm was. This palm seemed to have no limit as it expanded wildly. 10 light-years, 50 light-years, 100 light-years. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng's palm had expanded to 100 light-years. This was just a palm. Lin Feng only needed a palm to deal with Grand Emperor North Mountain. What? Grand Emperor North Mountain's heart skipped a beat. The words Supreme Grand Emperor still echoed in his ears. They even evoked distant memories in his mind. These 4 words were just a legend in the cosmos. How could there be a Supreme Grand Emperor? But now, as Lin Feng's palm expanded to hundreds of light-years, his mere body of nearly 30 light-years appeared so insignificant and powerless before this huge palm. Break! Grand Emperor North Mountain could no longer care about his deportment. He roared wildly, looking as if he had gone insane. It was no longer a matter of victory or defeat, but a matter of life and death. Under this palm, Grand Emperor North Mountain could already feel death descending upon him. It was as if the aura of death was lingering right around his body. He was a dignified, top-notch Grand Emperor. How could he fall? Absolutely not. Grand Emperor North Mountain unleashed the power of his combat body in a frenzy, and even enhanced it by 5 times with law. In terms of strength alone, he indeed had that close to a combat body of 150 light-years. However, which top-notch Grand Emperor did not have an enhancement from law? Boom! Lin Feng's huge palm grabbed hard, and Grand Emperor North Mountain's massive combat body was captured directly. With a crackling sound, more than half of the combat body on Grand Emperor North Mountain's body was instantly annihilated by Lin Feng's palm. So what if Grand Emperor North Mountain was enhanced by law to the level of 150 light-years? Lin Feng's enhancement was 10-fold. Just this palm alone had the power of a combat body of thousands of light-years. How could capturing Grand Emperor North Mountain not be an easy matter? Grand Emperor North Mountain was grabbed by Lin Feng like a tiny insect. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. Everyone seemed to be stunned, as if they had lost the ability for thought. That was a top-notch Grand Emperor, and Grand Emperor North Mountain was ranked in the top 5 of the North River Galaxy. It was even possible for Grand Emperor North Mountain to be ranked in the top 3 with the strength he unleashed at this moment. This was almost unparalleled power. However, this almost invincible power was grabbed by Lin Feng. He was like a divine king, and even top-notch Grand Emperors were insignificant before him. Could Brother Lin Feng have become a divine king? Venerable Vigil could not believe it. He had never seen a divine king before. He only knew that top-notch Grand Emperors could not put up any resistance against a divine king. Now that Grand Emperor North Mountain was facing Lin Feng, wasn't he completely unable to resist? Grand Emperor Scorpius stared blankly at Lin Feng, then at Grand Emperor North Mountain, who was constantly struggling violently, but had lost most of his combat body. An idea flashed through his mind like a bolt of lightning. The Supreme Grand Emperor, the legendary Supreme Grand Emperor. Grand Emperor Scorpius finally understood. He was a Grand Emperor, so he had naturally heard of the legendary Supreme Grand Emperor. However, he had always felt that this was just an absurd legend. How could there be such a thing as a Supreme Grand Emperor? The legendary Supreme Grand Emperor was the strongest person below the Divine King realm, truly invincible. He was even comparable to the weaker divine kings, and could dominate the universe as a ruler among grand emperors. How could Grand Emperor Scorpius not be shocked that such an absurd and outlandish rumor had actually appeared in the flesh, right in front of his eyes? The Supreme Grand Emperor? Impossible. The Supreme Grand Emperor is just a myth. How can you be the Supreme Grand Emperor? Grand Emperor North Mountain seemed to have gone insane, but it no longer mattered if he believed that Lin Feng was the Supreme Grand Emperor or not. Regardless, he had already been captured by Lin Feng like an insect. The life of a dignified top-notch Grand Emperor was in Lin Feng's hands. Grand Emperor North Mountain had never been so terrified as he was at this moment. Flee! Grand Emperor Igneous had always been very forbearing. He had endured humiliation for so many years. Now that he saw that Grand Emperor North Mountain was finally dealing with Lin Feng personally, he was incomparably pleased. However, he did not have the chance to be pleased for long. What did he see? Grand Emperor Igneous saw Lin Feng grab Grand Emperor North Mountain's astounding combat body like grabbing an insect. He did not even have the slightest ability to struggle or resist. What kind of frightening power was this? Just how strong was Lin Feng? Lin Feng's strength made Grand Emperor Igneous despair. Hence, Grand Emperor Igneous tried to escape immediately. As long as he could survive, even if billions of years passed, he would always have a chance to take revenge. As long as he was alive, there would be hope. Grand Emperor Igneous was about to escape. Unfortunately, he did not have the law of space and could not warp space. Lin Feng did not even look at Grand Emperor Igneous as he flicked his finger lightly. Swish! A finger almost crossed space and descended from the sky. A terrifying pressure descended. Grand Emperor Igneous could only watch helplessly as the huge finger pressed onto his combat body. Lin Feng! Grand Emperor Igneous roared in a wretched voice. Bang! Grand Emperor Igneous' 1 light-year combat body was instantly blasted apart by Lin Feng's finger and crushed into dust. The dignified Grand Emperor Igneous, who had once dominated the cosmos, fell just like that. Even a Grand Emperor could be annihilated by Lin Feng with a flick of his finger now. Seeing that Grand Emperor Igneous had fallen, Grand Emperor North Mountain stopped struggling instead. His expression gradually calmed down. Grand Emperor of Annihilation, how about we write off the matter of you killing North Mountain Jag? Lin Feng only looked at Grand Emperor North Mountain coldly. Could this Grand Emperor North Mountain be an idiot? Of course, Grand Emperor North Mountain was not an idiot. He said in a low voice, Grand Emperor of Annihilation, you can kill North Mountain Jag. You can kill Igneous without repercussions as well. But I'm the disciple of the North River Divine King. If you kill me, no one in the North River Galaxy can save you, even if you are the Supreme Grand Emperor. However, a smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. Grand Emperor North Mountain had relied on the North River Divine King to threaten him. This was fear. Even a dignified top-notch Grand Emperor could feel fear. He had no choice but to be afraid. In Lin Feng's palm, Grand Emperor North Mountain had already lost 90% of his combat body, leaving only the last 10%. With a little force from Lin Feng, he would be reduced to cosmic dust like Igneous. After a long while, Lin Feng said, Grand Emperor North Mountain, there's no feud between us. It's because of the matter with North Mountain Jag. You want to avenge North Mountain Jag. In reality, even if you kept the peace and had not come today, I'd still make a trip to the North Mountain domain. Do you know why? Grand Emperor North Mountain suddenly had a bad premonition. He stared into Lin Feng's calm eyes and asked in a low voice, Why? Because you're a fiend. Fiends deserve death. Lin Feng. Grand Emperor North Mountain was aghast. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, the huge palm suddenly clenched. Bang! The remaining 10% of Grand Emperor North Mountain's combat body instantly collapsed, and Grand Emperor North Mountain's figure disappeared without a trace, leaving only a scream. Lin Feng, the North River Divine King, will definitely avenge me. He will definitely. Grand Emperor North Mountain was dead. He was crushed by Lin Feng like a worm. North River Divine King. Lin Feng looked into the depths of the cosmos and muttered softly. No one knew what he was thinking. Actually, Lin Feng did not really want to kill Grand Emperor North Mountain. Just as Grand Emperor Scorpius had said, Grand Emperor North Mountain was too close to the North River Divine King. It was indeed a little troublesome. In particular, if Lin Feng wanted to develop the Guardian Domain in the North River Galaxy, he could not make enemies with the North River Divine King. It would be like a Grand Emperor who wished to establish himself in the Bamand Galaxy, yet killed a core disciple from the upper district of the Divine Palace of Bamand. How could the Divine Palace of Bamand possibly keep the peace and turn a blind eye to it? However, the moment Lin Feng grabbed Grand Emperor North Mountain, he sensed a strong murderous aura through his combat body. There were faint cries and wails from the vengeful spirits of countless living beings. Fiend. It was the aura of a fiend. Lin Feng had killed many fiends, so he naturally knew the aura of fiends very well. Not only was North Mountain Jag a fiend, even Grand Emperor North Mountain was a fiend. Moreover, he was a fiend who was a top-notch Grand Emperor. This was extremely rare in the entire universe. Normally, when fiends reached the Venerable Realm, they would keep a low profile and conceal themselves. Grand Emperor North Mountain had always conquered recklessly and without restraint in the North River Galaxy. He made no attempts at keeping a low profile. Fiends deserved to be killed. Lin Feng would not have any regrets. Looking at the cosmos that was gradually returning to calm, Grand Emperor Scorpius opened his mouth and hesitated. In the end, he could only shake his head deeply and sigh. Venerable Vigil, my father even killed Grand Emperor North Mountain. He's a top-notch Grand Emperor. Lin Shang, who had just metamorphosed into a planetary life form, had long been awakened by the commotion in the cosmos. As soon as he came out, he saw the shocking scene before him. Lin Shang was not the only one who was shocked. All the cultivators in the Guardian Domain who had some knowledge and knew the reputation of Grand Emperor North Mountain were already shocked and speechless. Grand Emperor North Mountain was one of the top Grand Emperors in the North River Galaxy. It would not be an exaggeration to say that his might shook an entire galaxy. However, in front of Lin Feng he was easily crushed like a bedbug. Just how formidable was Lin Feng's level of strength? Venerable Vigil smiled weakly and said, "A top-notch Grand Emperor? I don't think any top-notch Grand Emperor can reach Brother Lin Feng's level. He is undoubtedly the Supreme Grand Emperor." Supreme Grand Emperor? That's right, the Supreme Grand Emperor. Perhaps the Supreme Grand Emperor in the past only existed in illusory legends. But from today onwards, the Dominus of the Guardian Domain, the Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng, is the Supreme Grand Emperor. Everyone was in awe. The Supreme Grand Emperor was unique and invincible in the universe. He was like a king among Grand Emperors, invincible among all below the Divine King realm. This was the meaning of being supreme. Otherwise, how could it be called the Supreme Grand Emperor? Swoosh! Lin Feng, Grand Emperor Scorpius, and the others all returned to the Guardian Planet. Venerable Vigil and the others hurriedly came forward to welcome them. Even though Lin Feng was still the same Lin Feng, everyone had just seen Lin Feng unleash his prowess. That invincible demeanor was already deeply imprinted in everyone's hearts. There was already a faint change in the way they looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was no longer just the Dominus of the Guardian Domain. He was a legend in the universe, the Supreme Grand Emperor of the time, who would dominate a generation. Haha, Brother Lin Feng, I think you'll have to change your title in the future. From now on, the name of the Supreme Grand Emperor will definitely spread throughout the entire universe. As long as you, the Supreme Grand Emperor, are around, you'll dominate for a lifetime, and be invincible among anyone below divine kings. Venerable Vigil laughed heartily. Elation filled his voice. Ordinary cultivators might never have a chance of becoming a Grand Emperor, let alone a divine king. Most cultivators had never thought of becoming a Grand Emperor or a divine king at all. Grand Emperors were slightly better off. They often operated in the universe and had the most contact with ordinary cultivators. Hence, ordinary cultivators also had some understanding of Grand Emperors. A Grand Emperor could be said to be the strongest person an ordinary cultivator could come into contact with. To them, a Grand Emperor was the end point of cultivation. Hence, Grand Emperors were also ultimate planetary lifeforms. Becoming the so-called ultimate life form meant the end point of all aspects. The title of the Supreme Grand Emperor was almost synonymous with invincibility. In the vast universe, with billions of galaxies, he was the strongest cultivator among countless living beings. He could truly dominate for a lifetime, and was invincible in the universe. This awe struck the heart and made it impossible for one to calm for a long time. Even Venerable Vigil felt incomparably exhilarated now. If Lin Feng had only advanced to the level of a Grand Emperor, or even a top-notch Grand Emperor, deep down, Venerable Vigil would also harbor some thought of being competitive. However, Lin Feng had now become the legendary Supreme Grand Emperor. According to the summary of the entire universe, it had been billions of years since a Supreme Grand Emperor who could dominate for a lifetime had appeared. Venerable Vigil was completely convinced. He no longer had any thought of being competitive with Lin Feng. He was only excited now, incomparably excited. No matter how strong Lin Feng was, he was still his good friend and brother. Lin Feng, Grand Emperor Scorpius, and Venerable Vigil sat among in a quiet living room on the Guardian planet. Brother Lin Feng, is Grand Emperor North Mountain really a fiend? Grand Emperor Scorpius could not help but ask. Grand Emperor Scorpius also had some understanding of fiends. He had even killed fiends himself. However, Grand Emperor North Mountain, a dignified top-notch Grand Emperor, was actually also a fiend. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius found it somewhat unbelievable. Fiend! Venerable Vigil was shocked and muttered in a low voice, "Could the rumors be true? North Mountain Jag is a fiend, and so is Grand Emperor North Mountain. This is unbelievable." Even an ordinary Grand Emperor like Venerable Vigil knew that Grand Emperor North Mountain was a fiend. What did this mean? A dignified, top-notch Grand Emperor was actually a fiend. How many more fiends were hidden in the North River Galaxy? In the past, the North River Galaxy was only filled with chaos, killing, destruction, and so on. Even fiends had to conceal themselves deeply and keep a low profile. There were very few fiends that even reached the Venerable Realm, let alone become a top-notch Grand Emperor like Grand Emperor North Mountain. It was unbelievable, especially since Grand Emperor North Mountain had a close relationship with the North River Divine King. That's right. Grand Emperor North Mountain is a fiend. It's absolutely true. Lin Feng nodded. With his strength, no Grand Emperor was worth mentioning in front of him. This was because he was the Supreme Grand Emperor, who would dominate for a lifetime. Apart from Divine Kings, no one was his match. There was no need for him to frame Grand Emperor North Mountain for being a fiend. Moreover, Lin Feng did not need to frame him. This was the absolute truth. And the significance of this matter was even more shocking. What's the relationship between Grand Emperor North Mountain and the North River Divine King? Lin Feng frowned slightly as well. If Grand Emperor North Mountain was really the disciple of the North River Divine King, how could a dignified Divine King like him not see that Grand Emperor North Mountain was already a fiend? If he could see it, yet took no action on careful consideration, it would be even more thought-provoking. There was probably a deeper secret involved. If Lin Feng could think of it, so could Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius. Brother Lin Feng, you'd better return to the Bemond Galaxy quickly. That's right. Hurry up and return to the Bemond Galaxy. With Divine King Bemond around, even the North River Divine King won't dare to do anything to you. Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius both persuaded Lin Feng to leave. This matter involved the North River Divine King. Then things would get complicated. Even if Lin Feng was the Supreme Grand Emperor, what chance did he have of winning against the North River Divine King? It's fine. The North River Divine King can't kill me, Lin Feng said confidently. Then he changed the topic and shook his head. Even if I leave, what about the Guardian Domain? And what would the two of you do? Then we might as well move the Guardian Domain to the Bemond Galaxy. Venerable Vigil made a proposition. Move to the Bemond Galaxy? Lin Feng shook his head again. There are so many planets, and it's not possible to warp space. How many years will it take to move to the Bemond galaxy? 1,000 years, 10,000 years, or even longer? This was not realistic at all unless Lin Feng could move all the planets in the Guardian domain into the Starfell Pearl. However, there was only space in the Starfell Pearl, and living things could not survive in it. Actually, there's a solution. An idea flashed through Lin Feng's mind. The North River Divine King was indeed a threat. He was not very worried about his own safety. With the ultimate law of space and his current strength, it would not be easy for even a divine king to kill him. However, he was afraid that something would happen to the Guardian domain. This was Lin Feng's Achilles heel. He would never allow anything to happen to the Guardian domain. Although the Starfell Pearl could not accommodate living things, the Void Sky Divine Palace was different. The Void Sky Divine Palace was a treasure to begin with. The place where Divine Emperor Void Sky cultivated back then could accommodate living things. Moreover, it was not a problem for the broken patches of universe in the Void Sky Divine Palace to accommodate some territorial planets. Brother Lin Feng, you have a solution? There's a way, but we have to test it first. I'll have to trouble the two of you to come and test this with me. Lin Feng thought of a method, and would test it with the Void Sky Divine Palace. Although this might expose the Void Sky Divine Palace, both Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius were worthy of Lin Feng's trust. As for the other cultivators, how knowledgeable could they be? Even if they really recognized the Void Sky Divine Palace and word got out, so what? Lin Feng was now the Supreme Grand Emperor, and he possessed the ultimate law of space. Even if a Divine King attacked and Lin Feng was not a match, he could escape if he wanted to. The Divine King would not be able to do anything to him. The universe was a large place. What did Lin Feng have to fear? Lin Feng brought Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius directly to the cosmos. With a wave of his hand, the Void Sky Divine Palace immediately descended. Boom! The Void Sky Divine Palace was the supreme treasure of Divine Emperor Void Sky. Countless spatial divine runes circulated on it, flowing with light and vibrant colors, emitting a terrifying divine might. Even Grand Emperor Scorpius was secretly shocked when he saw it. The two of them looked at each other and vaguely guessed that this was definitely not a simple treasure. This is a treasure I obtained by chance. There is infinite space inside, and it can accommodate life. The two of you can enter it and give it a try. It can accommodate life? This is the first time I've heard of it. There's no harm in giving it a try. Grand Emperor Scorpius and Venerable Vigil did not hesitate at all. They had absolute trust in Lin Feng. Swoosh! The two of them flew straight into the Void Sky Divine Palace, and Lin Feng followed. Lin Feng actually did not have too much control over the Void Sky Divine Palace. He did not have the time to carefully organize and control the Void Sky Divine Palace yet. However, simple control was still possible. He moved the two of them into the broken cosmos. The two of them looked around. Venerable Vigil did not think much of it yet, but Grand Emperor Scorpius's eyes were filled with shock. He only looked at Lin Feng and did not say it out loud. It can really accommodate life? Such a vast cosmos is truly incredible. Venerable Vigil exclaimed in wonder. He had never seen a space that could actually accommodate the cosmos, and it was so realistic that it could even sustain life. Grand Emperor Scorpius sent a voice transmission to Lin Feng. Brother Lin Feng, this universe is not simple. You must not leak such a supreme treasure. You have to be careful. It was Grand Emperor Scorpius who put the clues together. Lin Feng was not surprised. After all, Grand Emperor Scorpius was an esteemed Grand Emperor. His horizons, level of cultivation, and strength were far from what Venerable Vigil could compare to. It was only normal that he could see what was special about the universe in the Void Sky Divine Palace. Don't worry. I'll be careful not to spread news of this supreme treasure. Grand Emperor Scorpius nodded. He did not ask about the exact origins of this supreme treasure. The more of a supreme treasure it was, the safer it was for fewer people to know about it. He had been in the North River Galaxy for so many years, so he naturally understood this principle. The two of them had already personally tested it. Could indeed accommodate life. Moreover, the dilapidated universe in the Void Sky Divine Palace was huge. It was enough to accommodate all the planets in the Guardian Domain, Vigil Domain, and Scorpius Domain. Since Lin Feng wanted to bring the people away, he had to bring away all the planets in the Vigil Domain and the Scorpius Domain. Seeing that Lin Feng was insistent, Venerable Vigil and Grand Emperor Scorpius did not decline anymore. They had guarded their territorial planets for so many years, and had naturally developed feelings for them. Why would they give them up if it was possible to bring them away? Hence, after Lin Feng explained things to the people on the territorial planets, he began to use the Void Sky Divine Palace to move all the planets in the Guardian Domain into the Void Sky Divine Palace. After moving into the Void Sky Divine Palace, all the cultivators in the Guardian Domain were safe and sound. Lin Feng was even more at ease. Then, he moved all the planets in the Vigil Domain inside. Then, he specially went to the Scorpius Domain and moved all the planets in the Scorpius Domain into the Void Sky Divine Palace. From then on, Lin Feng had no lingering worries. North River Divine King. Lin Feng looked into the depths of the cosmos. A bold thought flashed through his mind. If his guess was true, it would not be a good thing for the entire North River galaxy, or even the entire universe. Hence, Lin Feng had to verify this hypothesis himself. In fact, deep down, he would rather his hypothesis was wrong. However, I have to be sufficiently prepared before I go. If my guess is right, there is even more reason to be prepared. Lin Feng's expression was very solemn. He thought of the bold hypothesis in his mind. Even he was not completely confident. He had to act cautiously. Even though he was the Supreme Grand Emperor, if he really wanted to verify that hypothesis, his current strength was far from enough. Fortunately, although Lin Feng's realm could not improve rapidly, he still had an origin weapon, and the Starfell Pearl had infinite potential for continuous improvement. Lin Feng looked around. There were many planets in the North River galaxy, but there were also many inhabited planets. Lin Feng specially found an open area and took out the Starfell Pearl directly. Lin Feng even manifested a combat body of 1,000 light-years directly, and began to capture all the planets within a radius of 1,000 light-years without any signs of life, before transferring them into the Starfell Pearl. Originally, there were 12.8 billion planets in the Starfell Pearl. As Lin Feng used his full strength, the 1,000 light-year combat body began to transfer planets. Hence, the planets were all transferred into the Void Sky Divine Palace. Lin Feng moved hundreds of millions of planets at once within 1,000 light-years. 100 million, 500 million, 1 billion, 2 billion, 5 billion. Lin Feng did his best to move planets, and his efficiency was also very astonishing. His combat body had reached thousands of light-years. With just a slight movement, he could travel a great distance. It was like a black hole that was constantly devouring planets. How many planets were there in the North River galaxy? Perhaps even the Divine King did not know. Normally, in a galaxy with a diameter of 100,000 light-years, there were around 100 billion to 400 billion stars. This was just the stars. As for ordinary planets, they were simply innumerable. Hence, the planet in Lin Feng's Starfell Pearl was a drop in the bucket relative to the vast North River galaxy. 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion. When Lin Feng captured the planet with full effort, the commotion was naturally huge. Countless territories could sense the giant in the cosmos. However, even quasi-emperors and even the territories of grand emperors definitely did not dare to stop him at this moment. Who exactly is that? Such a terrifying combat body is incredible. I'm not sure. Could it be a fiend? Fiends only devour planets with life, and this cultivator only transfers those dead planets without any sign of life. He doesn't violate our territories at all. How can he be a fiend? But how massive must this combat body be? Hundreds of light-years. I think he's the legendary Supreme Grand Emperor. The commotion Lin Feng caused was simply too great. It was impossible for others not to discuss it. In particular, since Lin Feng practically never encroached on other territories in the slightest, these cultivators were also becoming more and more insolent. Recently, the news of the Grand Emperor of Annihilation killing Grand Emperor North Mountain in the Guardian Domain had long spread like wildfire. Back when Lin Feng killed Grand Emperor North Mountain, he did not conceal it at all. Forget about grand emperors, even some nearby venerables and quasi-emperors could sense it clearly. Hence, it was impossible to lock down this news. However, due to how recent the event was, most of the cultivators in the North River Galaxy did not believe it at all. How could Grand Emperor North Mountain be dead? In particular, the Grand Emperor of Annihilation had actually become the Supreme Grand Emperor, the Supreme Grand Emperor that only existed in legends? Not many people believed it. Only as time passed and the news of Grand Emperor North Mountain's death was confirmed would people perhaps believe it. However, now that Lin Feng had used his combat body, and a combat body of thousands of light years at that, capturing planets in a frenzy, someone would definitely recognize Lin Feng. At this moment, some people began to believe that Lin Feng was the Supreme Grand Emperor. Otherwise, how could he have such an enormous combat body? As time passed, Lin Feng kept capturing planets in a frenzy. The news of Grand Emperor North Mountain's death could not be concealed either. Gradually, it spread, making people even more convinced that Lin Feng was the Supreme Grand Emperor. Many cultivators even flipped through archaic texts and recalled some ancient legends. It was rumored that when the Supreme Grand Emperor appeared, he would definitely be able to dominate for a lifetime and be invincible among all. All geniuses would lose their brilliance before the Supreme Grand Emperor. All kinds of legends were prevalent in the North River Galaxy now. However, there were also some well-informed people who vaguely sensed the undercurrents in the North River Galaxy. It was as if a hint of instability had surfaced with the appearance of the Supreme Grand Emperor, Lin Feng. The North River Divine Palace was empty save for a few cultivators. The North River Divine King had only accepted 9 registered disciples in his life. The North River Divine Palace he established did not directly control the planet, unlike the Divine Palace of Bamond, which firmly controlled the Bamond Galaxy. The North River Divine Palace was more like a transcendent faction. It did not usually have much of a presence, but no one dared to underestimate it. At this moment, the 8 registered disciples had all rushed back to the Divine Palace. The 3rd disciple is dead. He's killed by the Grand Emperor of Annihilation. It's not the Grand Emperor of Annihilation now, but the Supreme Grand Emperor. Humph, what Supreme Grand Emperor? It's just a rumor. How can a Supreme Grand Emperor exist? I've seen Lin Feng from afar. I don't know what he's trying to do by capturing planets in the North River Galaxy now, but his combat body is really strong, at least 1,000 light years in size. When have you ever seen such a huge combat body? If he's not the Supreme Grand Emperor, who is? After learning that the 3rd disciple had died at Lin Feng's hands, I specially investigated some news in the Bamond Galaxy. Back when Divine King Bamond disappeared and the Divine Palace of Bamond was in danger, Lin Feng appeared out of nowhere and single-handedly killed 4 silent beasts with bodies of more than 40 light years. I think even if he's not the Supreme Grand Emperor, he's close. The 8 disciples were all Grand Emperors, and the 3rd disciple they mentioned was Grand Emperor North Mountain. Now, the news gathered from various channels made the 8 of them fall silent. Even if they did not admit that Lin Feng was the Supreme Grand Emperor, it was a fact that none of the 8 of them were Lin Feng's match. Everyone, the 3rd disciple's death isn't a big deal. But if his secret is exposed, what should we do? That's right. If Lin Feng insists on investigating, what will the Divine King do? Wouldn't our plan be ruined by Lin Feng alone? Humph, I really don't know why a disciple of the Bamond Galaxy like Lin Feng would come to the North River Galaxy. It just so happens that the 3rd disciple provoked Lin Feng. This is even more troublesome. If it were an ordinary Grand Emperor, even if it's a top-notch Grand Emperor, the 8 of us can deal with them together. However, against the Supreme Grand Emperor, even if the 8 of us join forces, we'll probably just be courting death. Although I don't know what Lin Feng is doing, now that this matter is becoming more and more intense, our North River Divine Palace can't stay out of it even if we want to. This matter is no longer something we can handle. In order to ensure that no accidents come up in His Majesty the Divine King's plan, we can only ask His Majesty the Divine King to act. That's right. We'll go together and solicit His Majesty the Divine King to act. After the 8 of them had a discussion, they also made their decision. Hence, the 8 of them walked into the depths of the Divine Palace together, prepared to jointly solicit the North River Divine King's support. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The 8 Grand Emperors of the North River Divine Palace knelt respectfully in front of a huge statue in the hall of the Divine Palace. This huge statue looked lifelike. As the voices of the 8 people echoed in the hall, gradually, the statue shook slightly, and even the entire Divine Palace seemed to be shaking slightly. Buzz. Suddenly, the walls of the hall cracked open from both sides, revealing a huge secret chamber. A figure was sitting cross-legged in the secret chamber. Swoosh! The middle-aged man suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was sharp and dignified. Even the 8 Grand Emperors were intimidated. They did not dare to show the slightest disrespect, and all knelt on the ground. The expression on their faces was not reverence. Rather, it was a kind of fear and trepidation. They appeared deeply afraid. "Why did you call me?" The North River Divine King's tone was a little hostile. He was in seclusion and was at a critical period. He was naturally a little displeased that someone had disturbed him. Hearing the discontent in the North River Divine King's tone, the 8 Grand Emperors appeared even more apprehensive. They replied in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, there's something I have to ask Your Majesty for. The 3rd Grand Emperor, North Mountain, has fallen." "Ha!" The North River Divine King's tone froze. His entire being turned frigid, instantly enveloping the 8 of them. "How did North Mountain fall?" "He was killed by Lin Feng." Lin Feng? The Grand Emperor of Annihilation, Lin Feng, who as a venerable fought a Grand Emperor above his level. That's right. This Lin Feng is not simple. He's no longer a venerable, and has already metamorphosed into a Grand Emperor. Moreover, his combat body is over 1,000 light-years long. People call him the Supreme Grand Emperor. Supreme Grand Emperor? The North River Divine King stood up suddenly. His gaze swept across the 8 of them. A Supreme Grand Emperor? How fascinating. A combat body of thousands of light-years is indeed unheard of. I wonder how wonderful it'd be if I devour him. Perhaps it will also be of some help to the perfection of my combat body. After all, it's a Supreme Grand Emperor that has never appeared in billions of years. Hearing the North River Divine King's words, the 8 of them were overjoyed. They hurriedly said, "If Your Majesty personally takes action, a mere Lin Feng will definitely be defeated. If it's just Lin Feng alone, even if he's the legendary Supreme Grand Emperor, there is nothing to worry about. However, there is the Divine Palace of Bamond and Divine King Bamond behind him. If Divine King Bamond insists on investigating, my plan over billions of years might be in vain." The North River Divine King glanced at the 8 of them again, seemingly very displeased. "You 8 Grand Emperors don't even dare to deal with Lin Feng. What worthless trash. What's the use of you?" The 8 of them trembled and hurriedly begged for mercy. They knew how terrifying the North River Divine King in front of them was. Originally, there were a total of 16 of them, but in the end, even including North Mountain, only 9 were left. The other 8 people who were not killed in battle, but devoured by the North River Divine King, devoured alive. Hence, how could these 8 people not be afraid? How could they dare to ask the North River Divine King to act if it was not absolutely necessary? "Your Majesty, actually, you do not have to worry about the Divine Palace of Bamond. You've been in seclusion and don't know what happened in the Silent Galaxy recently. Some unknown upheaval has occurred in the Silent Galaxy, and many silent beasts charged out of it. These silent beasts are endless and inexhaustible. Even the Divine Palace of Bamond was almost destroyed. How can they still spare the attention for our North River Galaxy? Even if Lin Feng is dead, the Divine Palace of Bamond can't afford to do anything about it. Silent beasts. The North River Divine King got someone to deliver the information. At the end, his brows relaxed. Whatever changes occurred in the Silent Galaxy had nothing to do with him. In fact, the more chaotic the universe was, the more beneficial it was to him. A Supreme Grand Emperor is ultimately a hidden threat. I hope North Mountain didn't slip up and reveal anything. Otherwise, I'll devour all of you first." The 8 of them were all trembling in fear and did not dare to speak. "Where is Lin Feng now?" Your Majesty, Lin Feng is currently in the North River Galaxy, and he has been using a combat body of 1,000 light-years. He seems to be constantly capturing planets. We don't know what he's trying to do. Guard the Divine Palace. I'll deal with this Supreme Grand Emperor myself. With that, the North River Divine King took a step forward and disappeared from the hall of the Divine Palace. The 8 Grand Emperors looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. In front of the North River Divine King, they were feeling more and more apprehensive. Even though they were all dignified Grand Emperors, they did not feel any sense of safety. His Majesty the Divine King can deal with Lin Feng, right? He probably can. A Supreme Grand Emperor? How can such a mythical thing be taken seriously? We cannot afford any accidents in the North River Galaxy. Otherwise, there will be no place for us in the vast universe. The 8 of them also prayed silently. Even though the North River Divine King was domineering, they did not want him to fail. 30 billion, 50 billion, 80 billion, 100 billion. Lin Feng's massive combat body swept through the regions again and again. The area within a radius of thousands of light-years had long been swept clean by Lin Feng. Many territories were left behind, but they were all alone in the cosmos. Not enough, far from enough. Although there were already 100 billion planets in the Starfell Pearl, Lin Feng still felt that it was not enough, far from enough. Forget about 100 billion, even 1 trillion would not be too many for Lin Feng. Lin Feng had smelted countless materials into the Starfell Pearl. Lin Feng did not know the limit either. There were also spatial divine runes. More than 1,000 spatial divine runes had expanded the space in the Starfell Pearl countless times. Moreover, Lin Feng could continue to inscribe spatial divine runes. Hence, planets were the ones that restricted the power of the Starfell Pearl now. Lin Feng needed a large number of planets. Lin Feng would not find even enough planets to form a galaxy too many. How many planets were there in the entire North River Galaxy? There were simply countless ordinary planets, and there were between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. Lin Feng continued to sweep. There were 100 billion planets in the Starfell Pearl, which was about 10 times that of the previous 12.6 billion planets. If its power was also increased by tenfold, it would only reach the level of 1,260 light-years. Such a powerful Starfell Pearl was already rather terrifying. With a single smash, even a galaxy would shake. However, compared to Lin Feng's combat body, especially with the enhancement of laws, it was still far inferior, let alone comparable to a divine king. Lin Feng was not refining the Starfell Pearl in such a frenzy and capturing so many planets to deal with Grand Emperors. Against Grand Emperors, it would simply be overkill. Lin Feng's combat body could already defeat all Grand Emperors. The only purpose of refining the Starfell Pearl was to resist divine kings. Hence, the power of the Starfell Pearl was far from enough in the present. Lin Feng continued to sweep. If thousands of light-years were not enough, he would sweep through tens of thousands of light-years. 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion, 400 billion. The speed at which Lin Feng captured them was still very fast. The range of his sweep also became wider and wider. There were many planets in the North River Galaxy, which allowed Lin Feng to capture them very efficiently. 500 billion, 600 billion, 700 billion, 800 billion. When the number of planets in Lin Feng's Starfell Pearl reached 1 trillion, there was not much space left in the Starfell Pearl. However, it did not matter. Lin Feng continued to inscribe. During this period of time, he had comprehended many spatial divine runes. Hence, he continued to inscribe them on the Starfell Pearl. Every time he inscribed one, the space in the Starfell Pearl would expand violently. This time, Lin Feng added another 1,000 or so spatial divine runes to the Starfell Pearl, reaching a total of 3,000. The 3,000 spatial divine runes also greatly increased the space in the Starfell Pearl again. Hence, Lin Feng continued to capture planets. 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 4 trillion. Finally, by the time Lin Feng captured almost all the planets in the North River Galaxy, he suddenly realized that the materials of the Starfell Pearl had reached their limit and could no longer accommodate more planets. Even Lin Feng probably did not know how many planets there were in the Starfell Pearl. Perhaps 4 trillion, perhaps 5 trillion. Lin Feng did not know. He only knew that he had swept through almost all the dead planets in the North River Galaxy. As for the power of the Starfell Pearl, there might be hundreds of billions of stars inside. Its power was simply terrifying to the extreme. Lin Feng did not know how many light-years of combat body it was comparable to. It was perhaps 50,000 light-years or 60,000 light-years or even stronger. When the Starfell Pearl was upgraded to this level, even as its owner, Lin Feng did not know how powerful it was unless it was tested in actual combat. It's about done. Lin Feng heaved a long sigh of relief. After so long and capturing planets in such a frenzy, he felt that it was about time. The power of the Starfell Pearl had already been increased to the limit. If it continued to strengthen, it would require more and more precious materials. The spatial divine runes on the Starfell Pearl in Lin Feng's hand constantly emitted a dazzling light. Lin Feng felt a sense of accomplishment deep down. This was different from the Void Sky Divine Palace. Although the Void Sky Divine Palace was also a supreme treasure, it was ultimately the treasure of Divine Emperor Void Sky, not a treasure personally created by Lin Feng. This Starfell Pearl was a continuously developing origin weapon forged by Lin Feng from the beginning, when he was at his weakest and most basic. All these years, Lin Feng had been thinking of ways to strengthen the Starfell Pearl, allowing this origin weapon to grow to its current state. Lin Feng had invested more effort into the Starfell Pearl than he had into his son and daughter. One day, you will definitely be more dazzling than the Void Sky Divine Palace. Lin Feng was filled with confidence. The Starfell Pearl was a purely offensive origin weapon. If he continued to strengthen it in the future, Lin Feng believed that one day, the reputation of the Starfell Pearl would definitely resound throughout the entire universe, and it would become a true supreme treasure. Lin Feng was still familiarizing himself with the greatly improved Starfell Pearl. His power was too strong. Even Lin Feng needed some time to adapt to it before he could control it perfectly. Suddenly, Lin Feng looked up at the cosmos. Not far from Lin Feng, circles of spatial ripples appeared in the cosmos. Someone was warping space. In particular, the occasional traces of aura emitted from the spatial ripples made Lin Feng extremely vigilant. Perhaps the scene he was most worried about had finally happened. Swoosh! The space opened up, and a figure stepped out of the spatial passage. This was only a middle-aged man. His aura was not even very strong. Lin Feng did not sense any aura of the law of space from him. However, if one could warp space without comprehending the law of space, there was only one possibility. A divine king. The other party was a divine king. Relying on powerful strength, divine kings could also warp space. North River Divine King. Lin Feng enunciated each word with a solemn expression. That's right. A 1,000 light-year combat body. The Supreme Grand Emperor. The legendary Supreme Grand Emperor. How many years has it been since one last appeared in the universe? I think I've almost forgotten the name of the last Supreme Grand Emperor. Oh? There were other Supreme Grand Emperors. Of course, anything is possible in the universe. You transformed into a Grand Emperor with a consummate combat body, right? It's incredible. The legends have become reality. The Supreme Grand Emperor of Legends is indeed real. However, the Supreme Grand Emperor was all they ever were. The previous one died before he could become a Divine Venerable or Divine Emperor. The North River Divine King's eyes seemed to be able to see through everything, but his expression was so serene. Only an occasional sharp glint flashed across his eyes. A Supreme Grand Emperor, the legendary Supreme Grand Emperor, was actually real. The North River Divine King was not as calm as he appeared on the surface. He knew the significance of a Supreme Grand Emperor very well. Since there was already a grudge, and North Mountain had even slipped up and revealed some clues, he had to do his best to kill Lin Feng. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble. Lin Feng still maintained his combat body. The 1,000 light-year combat body was simply too massive. It stretched across the cosmos like a behemoth. Even a black hole could not shake Lin Feng's current combat body. However, Lin Feng did not dare to underestimate the North River Divine King in front of him at all. It was as if the tiny body of his opponent contained a terrifying power. Once it erupted, it would definitely shake the world and the universe. In reality, Lin Feng had never seen a Divine King unleash their full strength. Even Divine King Bamond had basically never attacked at full force. This was because once they attacked at full force, their combat bodies would be enough to shatter the entire galaxy. Moreover, unless one was a Divine King, no one could provoke a Divine King into attacking with full power. Even top-notch Grand Emperors were incomparably insignificant before a Divine King, and were not worth a Divine King attacking with full power at all. North River Divine King. Do you know that Grand Emperor North Mountain is a fiend? Lin Feng stared intently at the North River Divine King. The bold hypothesis in his mind still needed confirmation from the North River Divine King. Fiend. North River Divine King suddenly smiled. With a wave of his hand, the surrounding space was sealed. I know that you have the ultimate law of space. Do you think that even if I come in my true body, I can't do anything to you? Let's see if you can warp space now. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Then, he sensed carefully and realized that he could not even sense the law of space. Under such circumstances, even if he had the ultimate law of space, there was nothing he could do to warp space. This should not be the ability of the North River Divine King, but a treasure that sealed space. Moreover, this treasure was very powerful, and could even block the detection of the ultimate law of space. Lin Feng's invincible reliance was easily broken by the North River Divine King. This made Lin Feng even more wary of the Divine King. As expected, every Divine King had cultivated diligently for billions of years and accumulated profound experience. No Divine King was easy to deal with. North River Divine King, you already know that I have the ultimate law of space, yet you still came. Now that you have sealed the space, I cannot escape. Looks like you're determined to kill me. That's right, you must die. Are you afraid that I'll find out your secret? Secret? What secret can you know? Lin Feng smiled. Previously, he only had some guesses. Now, the North River Divine King kept evading the point and refusing to answer his question. Lin Feng was even more certain. You naturally know your own secrets. North Mountain Jag is a fiend, and so is Grand Emperor North Mountain. How can the North River Divine King possibly not know? What a joke. What does them being fiends have to do with me? So what if I know that they're fiends? At worst, I didn't clean up my corrupt disciples. What secret can there be? Lin Feng shook his head and said, in the beginning, I only had some guesses, but now, I'm almost certain. North Mountain Jag is a fiend, and Grand Emperor North Mountain is a fiend. There are still 8 Grand Emperors in the North River Divine Palace, and they are all registered disciples of His Majesty the Divine King. Perhaps, they too are fiends. Absurd. There's something even more absurd. If I'm not wrong, Your Majesty, you're a fiend too. Boom. The North River Divine King was completely enraged. The aura on his body surged like a tidal storm, sweeping over. The entire cosmos was shaking. It was obvious how furious the North River Divine King was. Fiend? What a joke. In all these years in the universe, there are very few fiends at the level of Grand Emperors, let alone one like myself. Do you actually believe a Divine King can be a fiend? North River Divine King's expression was dark as he sneered. I didn't believe it in the past, but I do now. Grand Emperor North Mountain is a fiend, and he became a Grand Emperor. How many living beings has he devoured? As for Your Majesty, you've been in the North River Galaxy for 80 million years, right? I've investigated carefully. Before you came to the North River Galaxy, the North River Galaxy was just a chaotic galaxy, far from being a holy land for cultivation. However, that was until you appeared. In the beginning, you were a Grand Emperor. Later, you became a Divine King in just 30 million years. You deliberately left the North River Galaxy alone, but also vigorously promoted the prosperous environment of cultivation in the North River Galaxy. In addition, with a Divine King like you presiding over it, you would naturally attract an endless stream of cultivators. But over the years, while the North River Galaxy seemed to be prosperous and called a holy land for cultivators on the surface, in reality, how many cultivators are constantly pouring in from all over the universe? It's probably 10 or 100 times more than the North River Galaxy in the past. Even if cultivators attack each other, if you set the rule that territorial planets are not to be destroyed at will, who would dare to disobey it? Hence, even if we attack each other, we can't destroy territorial planets. The lives of cultivators are very long. Over time, the number of people in the North River Galaxy should be 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 or 10,000 times greater than before. But what I investigated is that even compared to 10 million years ago, the number of cultivators has only increased by tenfold. What's a mere tenfold? Even the descendants of cultivators should have increased by more than tenfold. Where did all those cultivators go? North Mountain Jag, Grand Emperor North Mountain, and your few registered disciples are all Grand Emperors. They are all fiends. How many cultivators have they devoured to grow to their current level? Not to mention that there's a formidable divine king like yourself. No matter how many lives there are, they won't be enough for you to devour. Am I right, North River Divine King? At this point, Lin Feng's tone became colder and colder. Even though he was facing a dignified divine king, he could not help but emit a trace of killing intent. Fiends deserved death. How many lives would a divine king have to devour to metamorphose into a divine king? He was certain that the North River Divine King was also a fiend.